Hello, everybody. I'd like to talk to you today about a case that I tried the last couple of days. Why I think that this case is important is because the issues were around domestic violence and a child being able to visit with the person who was the offender. Now, it was a difficult case, and it often is difficult when you have domestic violence because you can't always prove it. A lot of times the domestic violence is happening behind the closed doors, and so if you don't have some evidence, it's hard to prove to the court exactly how terrible it is. So I'm going to tell you some things that I think were pretty valuable in obtaining the result that we really wanted in our case. And number one, if you're the person who has been abused, you want to make sure that you document that. Now, how can you document it? For one thing, I think it's important that you take pictures. If you have pictures, you want to have a date and time stamp. You want to be able to show this is when the injury took place. And ideally, you're going to have some information about what happened. You're going to say why you had a fight, what happened, what did you do? Did you go to the police? Did you call somebody? Did you run next door? Did you go to a neighbor? And why is that important? It's important because if you have a witness to say that they saw you, that they knew that you were injured, that's really helpful because then you have a backup, right? You have somebody to say, no, it's just not my word. For instance, in the case that I tried today, they tried to say my client had been in a car accident and that's why she had a black eye and not because the offender had hit her in the face. So you may think, I'm not going to, you're not going to forget these things that happen to you, but you do. You forget why you had the fights. And so if you are in a situation where you're being abused and you don't know where to turn, this is a video that I think you should watch because I want you to take notes, and when you feel ready, then this is the way you can prepare for your case. And so the next thing that you can do is if you have conversations about what happened, whether email or text or voice recording, if you have a phone conversation, then record it and keep it. Keep the text messages where he says or she says, I'm sorry. Keep the emails where you discuss what happened. Keep the voice recordings where they call and say, I'm sorry that this happened. If you have damages to the property, make sure you do the same thing. Take pictures of it right after it happens. Take pictures of it and document it. Mention it in an email. Mention it in a phone conversation and have record on so you can show the court exactly what's happened. If you go to the police, I'm urging you not to dismiss your case. Later on, it can be used against you. If you've dismissed your case, they're going to say you dismissed it because it didn't happen. And you know that it really happened. And I see it so many times that the cases are dismissed, but for various reasons. But it's really important that you don't dismiss your case. At the very least, get a miscellaneous report from the police officers and have them write down what happened. Now, the police can choose to prosecute on their own, so you should be aware of that. And maybe you're not to the point that you want to prosecute the person, but you certainly need to protect yourself. Now, if you have a counselor, it's important that you have a counselor who can speak to domestic violence issues. We had an expert witness yesterday, we had an expert witness that was able to talk about domestic violence, and it was so totally on point with our case that it was easy to show through text messages and voice calls that we had someone that was an offender. So a domestic violence expert can be really helpful. And then if you ask for a psych evaluation, the psych evaluation in our case didn't actually show that the person had a propensity for violence, but it did show a lot of other factors that I could tie it in to the violent propensities. We also talked to other people. We found out that there were ex-girlfriends, and we looked for court records to show that this is not the first time that it happened. If someone is a domestic violence abuser, usually there's going to be a record of it. There's going to be something else. We actually, in this case, had found harassment charges. We found 3 protection orders. We found another DV case. So have those for the court. When you go in, don't just say this happened. Actually get the documents from the court if you possibly can to show the court what happened. And then if there are children involved, you need another expert. I'm sorry to tell you, it's not usually inexpensive to try this kind of case. But the other expert that you need is an expert to talk about how are children affected and impacted by domestic violence in a home. There's tons of evidence to show all the things that can happen. And these children, in this case, actually did a psych profile, and it was absolutely correlative with what was happening in the home. So we had lots of text messages, we had voice recordings, we had photographs, we had previous arrest records, and we had 2 or 3 experts involved. So all of that is really important. And plus, we had gone over with our client many, many times what had happened, why it happened, and then we had taken depositions, obviously, and we had done discovery. So I'm hoping that if you are a victim of domestic violence, whether you're a man or a woman, whether you're married or whether you're single, that you'll really listen to the things that I've told you, and then you'll do your best to build a great case. And I hope for you the most safety that you possibly can have. Thank you.